Hello friends. Welcome to Defense Matrix. On this channel you will get fully information about defense and technology. Let's view the video. The Irish Brigade in America Civil War. Who were the Irish Brigade? Origins of a fearless fighting force. Imagine leaving behind famine, poverty, and oppression in your homeland, only to find yourself caught in one of the bloodiest wars in American history. That was the fate of tens of thousands of Irish immigrants who joined the Union Army during the American Civil War. Among them, the most legendary and fierce was the Irish Brigade, a unit forged from the fires of hardship and fueled by unbreakable loyalty to both their faith and their adopted country. Formed in 1861 under the command of Brigadier General Thomas Francis Meagher, the Irish Brigade was made up almost entirely of Irish Catholics. Most were recent immigrants who had fled the horrors of the Great Famine and anti-Irish discrimination. Yet, despite the prejudice they faced in America, these men enlisted in massive numbers, eager to prove their loyalty to the Union. But they weren't just motivated by patriotism. Many joined out of a hope that, by showing bravery on American soil, they could win support for Irish independence back home. This wasn't just a fight for the United States, it was, in their minds, a fight for Ireland's honor on a global stage. The Irish Brigade quickly earned a reputation for unparalleled bravery, high casualty rates, and unshakable morale. Their green flags, inscribed with ancient Irish symbols and battle cries like Fag and Belak, clear the way, became icons of courage on the battlefield. From their roots in Brooklyn, Boston, and New York, these men carried the spirit of Ireland into America's most decisive battles. Weapons, uniforms, battle tactics. Inside the brigade's military arsenal, what made the Irish Brigade stand out wasn't just their courage, it was how they fought. At a time when modern warfare was evolving rapidly, the brigade adopted traditional tactics mixed with cutting-edge 19th-century military technology. Their weapons and uniforms weren't just tools of war, they were symbols of identity, purpose, and defiance. The soldiers of the Irish Brigade were typically armed with Springfield Model 1861 rifled muskets, one of the most advanced firearms of the era. These .58 caliber weapons had an effective range of 200 to 300 yards and could deliver devastating volleys in coordinated formations. Paired with bayonets, these rifles turned the brigade into a dual-threat force, deadly at a distance and terrifying in close combat. Their tactics were bold, sometimes even reckless. They often led frontal assaults, charging enemy lines head-on while taking massive losses. At Fredericksburg, they attacked entrenched Confederate positions on Marye's Heights 5 times in a single day, suffering horrendous casualties. Yet their discipline never broke. They advanced in tight formation, shoulder to shoulder, muskets gleaming, Irish green flags flying in the smoke. Their uniforms also set them apart. Early on, they wore dark green frock coats with gold trim and sky blue trousers, a nod to Irish nationalism and pride. Though later replaced with standard Union blue, many soldiers continued to wear green sashes and shamrock pins to show their heritage. Behind it all was Meagher's vision, an elite fighting force that embodied both Irish valor and American loyalty. The combination of courage, advanced weaponry, and fearless tactics made the Irish Brigade one of the Civil War's most formidable units and one of its most tragic. Blood on the battlefield, the Irish Brigade's fiercest fights. Few military units in American history have faced the kind of brutal combat that the Irish Brigade endured during the Civil War. Their legacy was forged in fire and blood, etched into history at places like Antietam, Fredericksburg, and Gettysburg, where they earned both honor and unimaginable loss. At the Battle of Antietam, the Irish Brigade was ordered to storm the Confederate-held Bloody Lane, a sunken road turned death trap. Through choking gun smoke and withering musket fire, the brigade advanced step by step, suffering nearly 60% casualties. But they broke the Confederate line and turned the tide of the battle. Their green flags were tattered, but their spirit remained unbroken. Then came Fredericksburg, perhaps the brigade's most infamous engagement. Ordered to assault a heavily fortified Confederate position on Marye's Heights, they charged uphill into a wall of bullets. 5 separate attacks, each more suicidal than the last. Over 545 men were killed or wounded in a single afternoon. One Confederate officer, watching the Irish fall by the dozens, remarked, "They are green flags and brave men. They deserve better." At Gettysburg, the brigade held the wheat field against overwhelming Confederate numbers. Exhausted, outnumbered, and surrounded, they fought tooth and nail to prevent a breakthrough. Their actions bought time for Union reinforcements and helped turn the tide of the battle and ultimately, the war, but all this glory came at a terrible cost. The Irish Brigade entered the war with over 3,000 men. By its end, barely 500 remained. These weren't just battles, they were blood-soaked crucibles where identity, bravery, and tragedy collided. The Irish Brigade's story is not just about military success, it's about sacrifice, legacy, and the price of being remembered as heroes. Unmatched courage or sacrificial lambs? The high cost of loyalty, the Irish Brigade's bravery was never in question. But as the war raged on and their ranks thinned to near extinction, one troubling question emerged: were they heroes? Or were they expendable? At Fredericksburg, they were ordered into one of the most hopeless assaults in American military history, charging uphill across open ground, straight into Confederate rifle fire. They were mowed down in waves. Over 545 of their 1,200 men were killed or wounded in a single day. And yet, they kept advancing. One Confederate general, stunned by their determination, said, "Isn't there a single man left who will turn back?" But behind the admiration lay something darker. The Irish were immigrants seen by many in high command as outsiders, second-class citizens, even cannon fodder. Was their valor exploited to prove loyalty to a country that still questioned their worth? General Marr himself voiced outrage at how his men were continually placed in the most dangerous positions, without rest, without reinforcements, without reason, yet the Irish Brigade never refused to fight. Loyalty to the Union, to Ireland, to each other ran deeper than fear. Their Catholic faith gave them strength. Many carried rosaries into battle, believing death on the field was a sacrifice for something greater. Still, the numbers don't lie. By war's end, the Irish Brigade had suffered over 4,000 casualties, an attrition rate higher than most Union units. Entire families were destroyed. Irish communities in New York, Boston, and Philadelphia were left mourning generations of young men who would never return. So, were they courageous warriors? Or sacrificial lambs? Maybe they were both. And maybe that's why their story still haunts the pages of history, not just as a tale of bravery, but as a painful reminder of how loyalty, identity, and sacrifice are sometimes rewarded with silence. Legacy of the Irish Brigade: honor, identity, military impact. The legacy of the Irish Brigade didn't die on the battlefield, it echoed through generations. These men became symbols of Irish-American pride, proving to a skeptical nation that immigrants weren't just laborers or outsiders, they were defenders of the Union, heroes of war. Monuments to the brigade now stand at Antietam, Gettysburg, and Fredericksburg, etched with shamrocks, harps, and the words "fag" and "belak." Schools, military regiments, and Irish-American societies continue to honor their name. Their story reshaped how America viewed its immigrant soldiers and how those soldiers viewed themselves. In modern military history, the Irish Brigade remains a benchmark for courage under fire, cultural resilience, and the cost of proving one's worth in war. In their green flags and blood-stained battlefields lies a lesson still relevant today: true loyalty is not just worn, it's earned through sacrifice. Thanks for watching. Subscribe our channel Defense Matrix for more interesting and knowledgeful videos.